We are in a series right now that is all about waking up. So I'm sorry if you wanted to sleep through the service, but it's contraindicated by the theme. We are always looking at some new way to say the same thing. Isn't that what the universal truth really says? Is, there's only one reality, and the only reason we have to talk about it so much and say it from different ways is to hopefully to break through the conditioned mind that sees a very different reality most of the time, in which we are suffering, in which we feel separate from life, separate from each other, separate from our good, separate from love, separate from peace of mind and joy. And these are all of the fruits of the Spirit, and we hold them to be self-evident. We hold them to be inviolable, unalterable, illimitable truths that are at the core of our very being, of life itself. And yet somehow it escapes our ordinary mind, our ordinary awareness. And so we have to find ways in which to plumb the depths of our understanding where these truths are completely evident. And this is just one more way, folks. It's just one more sleight of hand to trick the ego into stepping back out of the position of power and authority that it has, that gives us a world that is limited and fearful and not enough. So we started 2 weeks ago, and it's based upon a book we've been reading called You Can't Sleep Through Your Awakening. And I love the title. It's also written by a friend of ours. Denise and I know Jane Simmons very well, and she is also the co-author of the Q Process, which many of you have been through. And so you realize that this is not just garden variety spirituality, but it is really aimed at waking us up. It's about transforming us from this illusory sense of life that we live in most of the time. And we began week one with a metaphor from the Matrix movie, the notion that Neo, the key character in the movie, was given an opportunity to awaken, and it was broken down into two choices that he was given, either to take a blue pill or a red pill. And if he were to choose the blue pill, he would just go back to his normal life, and he would wake up the next morning and nothing really would have changed. But if he were to take the red pill, then he would be basically taking the deep path of awakening, in which he would be shown how the ordinary world is not the real world. And it would be, the rabbit hole experience that you and I, many of you and I have, many of you and I, that's a good phrase. Many of yous and many of I's have taken as well, going down that rabbit hole, that commitment to be willing to stand in the discomfort of spiritual growth, development, and unfoldment in order to realize this greater reality. Because we want to give sway to this impulse that you and I have to be free. We all have this deep within us, this feeling that life can be more. It's a sort of divine discontent that you and I have. And the answer to it, according to the illusory world, is to go out and make something different out there, is to change the landscape of our life to, another thing, another person, another something that would somehow, moderate our experience in such a way that we would finally realize that so elusive experience of well-being and happiness. And when we've done that time and time again and have not gotten any better results, many of us turn to the spiritual journey, and we're willing to take the red pill. We're willing to be uncomfortable in order to ultimately be free. Does that define any of you? Yes. 3 people, which is good. We'll start there. Next week it'll be 5 before you know it. So I'm kidding. So Neo wrestles with that decision, but finally he does do that. He dives in and he takes the red pill. And for you and I, it is not so easy. You know, would be nice, wouldn't it? Have you ever fantasized about if there would just be a pill, you know? Really, all this struggling, can't you come up with something? And for us, it's more of a progressive realization, or at least it seems to be in the nature of time and space, that happens for us. And it takes this sort of assiduous sort of determination and commitment to stay the course, to stay the path. And the good news is that we're constantly being carried all the time by this invisible presence, power, love, that is God. We're not doing this alone, even though sometimes it feels like we're hanging over a cliff and we're wondering if this is just too precarious and whether we'll be safe. And sometimes it is necessary for us to jump off of a cliff. Of course, I'm speaking figuratively, you know, to take the plunge, to leave something that's familiar and comfortable in order to experience something that is greater, that is on the other side of our comfort zone. And you all know what I'm talking about. You've all done this in some way. So what this leads us to in sort of practical terms is that we come more into an awareness of what time zone. Now, yes. Really, the sum substance of spiritual awakening moves us from the orientation to time and space, or, you know, looking backward and looking forward with the anxiety that comes with that and the regret that comes with looking backward, to a realization of living in this present moment. And we give up this dangerous habit of nexting, for example. There's a word that she came up with. We know it's not safe to drive and text. It's also not safe to drive through your life while you're nexting, because you miss what's here now. You know, so we all understand about making plans, but where's our consciousness? Where's our awareness? If my awareness is here while I'm making plans for the future, then I'm making enlightened decisions for the future. But if my consciousness is in the future while I'm making plans for the future, then I am not connected with the truth of my being, out of which the well of wisdom can guide me in making my decisions. So many people think, oh, I can't be in the now moment. I have to plan. I've got, you know, dinner tonight. I've got, you know, laundry to do, and then the kids are coming home, and there's all these things in the next moment that have my attention. So it isn't that we give up using time and space and using our calendars. It's that we keep our awareness, our attention in the now moment, and only go out to the future as a way of planning our life, but not where we live our life. Does that make any sense? Yeah. Okay, good. I was hoping it would. So then, last week, we talked about waking up is hard to do. They say that waking up, join me, is hard to do. You're stuck in your mind, you don't know how to do. Anyway. Somebody told me that Neil Sedaka actually re-recorded a song with that title, Waking Up is Hard to Do. And I did not know that. And I thought I knew everything. So, anyway, you can find that on YouTube. But waking up seems hard to do, but it's only hard to do when we try to solve the problem of waking up at the level of the what? At the mind. Because at the level of the mind does not want to wake up. It thinks it's got it. I got this, right? I got this. And what it has is a rational, logical picture of how life is and how it needs to be, right? And so when we're trying to wake up, then we have to wake up at the level of us that is already in league with the notion of wholeness, of expanded presence, of the infinite intelligence of the universe. Not just the limited capacity of a mind that is highly organized in order to maintain its own survival and also being right, and such things like that. So we're realizing, and we began to sort of journey last week, we said, okay, so if we're going to co-facilitate this awakening process. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to move that 18 inches from the head to the heart. And because the heart, and we're not talking about the physical heart, obviously, we're talking about what was called the heart in spiritual terms, which is this sense of being. It is a sense of being that is not domiciled strictly in your body, but it is a sense that is a sense of liveness, of beingness, and it is not confined by time or space. It is the sense that is connected with the whole. It doesn't have boundaries and barriers like the sense of a body and a mind. So we said that the reason that's really important is because at the level of the mind, we have a negativity bias. In other words, we tend to be more aligned with things that could harm us and less attached to things that are good. And so because that's true, it seems like we go through life a lot being manipulated or being controlled, or at least the predominant consciousness that we have is fearful, because we're very highly vigilant of anything that could harm us. Does anyone relate to that? Yeah, we're just thinking, you get up in the morning and you're not thinking about, oh, what a beautiful morning, oh, what a beautiful, you're more thinking like, oh, shoot, I got to get up, and then I got that to do, and oh, see, do I have time for a shower, and see, oh, and then I got to give that report today, and you're not thinking about, gee, I wonder how many good things are in my life. And I mean, hopefully you're learning that this is the practice that we're moving towards. But we realize that we all have to be more emphatic in leaning towards the positive things in life, because the negativity tends to grab us and tends to sort of co-opt our mind and our thoughts and our consciousness. And we don't want to give sway to that as much as we tend to do. So becoming heart-centered is the way that we do that. And I spoke last week about a way that you could do that is using this coherence process that the HeartMath Institute came up with. And we did an actual practice at the end of my message last week of being able to move into that heart space. And that has to do with shifting our focus out of our head and into our heart, and breathing into our heart. And just even in a matter of 10 seconds, if you do this practice of breathing into your heart with your attention on your heart, and then recall some positive experience in your life, something that brings you a feeling of appreciation, of positive regard of some kind, whether that's a scene from where you've been, a beautiful beach that you've been on, or being with a loved one, or a child or a grandchild, or some positive experience. Doing that alone brings you into that heart space. And when you're in that heart space, then you are connected with the truth of your being. Then you are in a place of wisdom, a place of love, a place of appreciation. Then you're in a place where your life then can evolve from the highest that you are. So that was what we talked about last week. Would it be possible? Never mind. I got my own air conditioning right here. Is anyone else warm? No. Yes. No. Boy, have that conversation, and it's 75 here, so I'm going to go for air conditioning. You want to turn it on back there? Yeah, we will do that. No. Yes. No. You're freezing? Okay. Never mind. It's me. So that was what we did last week, and I just wanted to lay that foundation, because as we move along, I want you to see the connection between where we started, how we're progressing, and then today, how it links into what we're talking about today. So today I'm going to talk about, we're going to stay in the attitude of appreciation, because what we know that in an attitude of appreciation, we're counteracting, or it's an antidote to the negativity bias that we have. So now we're recognizing that we're going to have to become co-creators in this awakening process, to the extent that you and I have some choice in the matter of how we enter into life, how we experience life, how we interact with what's happening. And so you've all heard about gratitude, and of course we all know gratitude is a good thing. Not too many people, I think, necessarily associate it as a very highly powerful spiritual tool. And that's what I wanted to highlight today. I mean, you may have grown up or, were told, be grateful, like don't be expectant of people giving you things and always say thank you. And that's sort of a moral code around gratitude. But what I'm interested in is how gratitude actually is opening our spiritual eyes. Because when you think about it, when you're grateful, you're looking for the good, right? So if this practice is helping you look for the good, sort of like, refining your perception to give it a bias towards the good, you're constantly looking for what's good and that which is to appreciate. Isn't that very much like what the spiritual path is, which is to open our eyes to see what is all around us and within us that is not visible to our ordinary senses? Isn't that what spiritual growth is? So if we're learning through a practice of gratitude to look for the good, then you can just substitute God for good, because what we're looking for in our spiritual growth is to see what our eyes do not see, as Jesus said. That you have eyes, but you do not see. He was saying we need to open our spiritual eyes, our real eyes, so that we can see what is about us always. The famous line about the kingdom of God, and the disciples were saying, when will this come? You keep talking about this kingdom of God. When will it come? And he says, it will not come by observation. Neither will men say, look here or look there. For the kingdom of God is spread upon the earth, and men do not see. Now, he didn't mean it was spread upon the earth in terms of, literally spread upon the ground. He meant it was here. It was now. And he said, the kingdom of God is within you. So what is it in our perceptual bias that keeps us from seeing that? And it is our negative bias. It is our attention to things that can harm us, what's missing or broken or not working in our life. And when we reverse that to seeing what's working, what's present, and what's good, then we're making our hearts conditioned to be in the league with spiritual mastery, which to recognize what is here, what is now in its fullness, where there's nothing missing, nothing lacking, nothing wrong in spiritual terms. And we know that neuroscientists have discovered that if we're grateful, we get some chemical rush too. Dopamine and serotonin seem to go up when we're grateful. And we're all looking to get a little bit happier, right? A little more joy, a little more happiness. So the last thing I want to share with you before I have a little video clip is that something that Eckhart Tolle has said. And, it's funny how you hear things and then you forget them and then you find them again and you go, wow, how did I forget that? And he says something extraordinarily helpful, I think. He says, whatever the present moment contains, and of course we're talking here about, we're not talking about things that are easy to accept, but whatever the present moment contains, he says, accept it as if you had chosen it. Accept it as if you had chosen it. Now see, here's the deep spiritual truth here. Now, first of all, I want to let you off the hook, and myself. He's not saying that you have to believe that you did choose it. Now, this is a New Age teaching that I think is only partially true. That's not what he's saying, though. He's saying accept it as if you had chosen it. And when you accept things as if you had chosen it, now suddenly you align yourself with what is. You call off this sense of resistance, of pushing away, of feeling like Russ was talking about, that feeling of being victimized, feeling that life is against you. Just by adopting this posture of taking life as if you had chosen it. And a couple years ago when I injured both of my arms, and I was in the sling for 6 weeks each time, that was so helpful to me. Because before I got into that place, I was ridden with how stupid am I, And then why did this happen to me? The whole litany, you know this whole story, right? And when I was able to shift it, that as if I had chosen this, there was suddenly, the mind chatter just stops. When you stop arguing with reality, that mind chatter, it just stops. And when the mind chatter stops, now you have the ability to have access to a greater sense of who you are. This is what allows you to move from the head with all of its arguments and its resistance and its incessant resistance to life. And when that quiets, you drop into the heart, into this knowing of your own being. And this is a very powerful place to live our life. Does anyone know this? I want to see all your hands come up. There you go. You do. You all know this, whether you know it or not. So what we're just proposing this week, besides just, be grateful, which is always a good idea, is when things arise in your life, just try it on. Try on, as if you had chosen it. Not that you chose it, because if you think, I chose this, you're going to feel guilty and even more victimized, and that your spiritual effort has gone for naught, and you're no good, and no. Forget that. Just as if. Try it on and see how your posture is with life. It will change remarkably. And sometimes you start with the little stuff and then you work up to the big stuff. So, start with the next time you're in traffic and suddenly you're stopped when you shouldn't be stopped. The traffic should be going. Or you get lost, or, and you're driving around, or you're, whatever it is, you get a headache or you get a cold or something. Instead of like, you beat yourself up, or you're angry at the universe. See if this attitude doesn't help, because this is what moving into an attitude of appreciation starts with. It starts with acceptance of what is. Now, this doesn't mean that you become passive and don't take action. But your action now is taken not from a place of resistance and anger and frustration and limitedness, but from a place of authentic power, which is when you are aligned with the universe, with what is, then you have the resources of the universe and its wisdom and its love to guide. And this is where you and I want to live and have our being. So we have an affirmation slide. I think it might be after the video, but I want to put it up now. So here's our affirmation for the week. Let's say this together. Everything is happening for my good. Take a breath. Say it again. Everything is happening for my good. So this may not seem to be something that you can digest. So again, like everything we share here, it's like, going to the dressing room, at a fancy store. Go in there, try this on, see how it feels, see how it fits, and you can just walk out without using it. But what we're looking for, you and I are looking for, is something that is not just connected with this in a literal sense, but how this points to this part of us that knows that there's nothing against us. There is a part of us that knows that nothing is against us. And we're pointing to that when we use these techniques and these affirmations. And the part of us that critically likes to reject these ideas, as long as it's still operating, it will tell us that this is a bunch of spiritual BS. And it will encourage us to go back and get back on Facebook and tell people how awful our life is. And our well-meaning friends will agree with us And we won't have to go down the rabbit hole of spiritual awakening. We can stay with our story that keeps us unconscious. Or maybe today's the day we say, I'm ready to explore the depth of life and the depth of my being and the depth of love and the peace that Jesus talked about that passes all human understanding. And so I'm going to adopt a new practice when I'm tempted to react. I'm going to view this as if I chose it and just try that on. And with the notion that everything that happens is for my good. How could that be true? Let's explore that together. Let's see how that might be true. You're in a community that is devoted to helping people realize and express their divine nature. We would be disingenuous if we didn't challenge you in this way, that I wouldn't be challenged in this way. I'm right with you. This is not me talking to you. It's the one talking to all of us. Our mission, should we decide to accept it, is to take on all the strategies, all the paths with heart that help us to realize this deeper truth. I'm going to just close with a video from David Stendhal Rost. He's a brother of, he's a monk, but I'm not sure what faith, Franciscan possibly, but he just talks about how you could have a good day, and instead of our closing meditation, we'll just invite you to open your heart and watch this.
You think this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you today. It's given to you. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now, and the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you do nothing else but to cultivate that response to the great gift that this unique day is, if you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. We just think of the weather, and even of the weather we don't think of all the many nuances of weather. We just think of good weather and bad weather. This day, right now, is unique weather. Maybe a kind that will never exactly in that form come again. The formation of clouds in the sky will never be the same that is right now. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face. A story that you could never fully fathom. Not only their own story, but the story of their ancestors. We all go back so far. And in this present moment, on this day, all the people, all that life from generations and from so many places all over the world flows together and meets you here like a life-giving water if you only open your heart and drink. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives to us. You flip a switch and there is electric light. You turn a faucet and there is warm water and cold water and drinkable water. It's a gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. So these are just a few of an enormous number of gifts to which we can open your heart. And so I wish you that you will open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you, that everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you. Just by your eyes, by your smile, by your touch, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessing all around you. And then it will really be a good day.
So I'm wishing you a good day, and we have lots of ways to do that. And I'm also grateful for you. I'm also grateful for this community. This community, I think, is very unique, that it has stood for so many decades with a transformative thought system and a power that stands in relative obscurity to the predominant religions in the world, and yet has maintained its presence and has blessed many, many lives. Many of us are testimony to how these teachings have saved our life. I would say that's literally true for me. So, to Unity of Santa Barbara and to you, much gratitude. God bless you. Thank you.